James Edward Oswald.
You live here?
Yes, I do. Well, I live in Star Ranch.
Star Ranch, which is, how far away is that from the city of Placerville?
Oh, about 6 or 7 miles. I really consider myself a Placerville person
Okay.
because I spend a lot of time over here. The very first time I was in Placerville was probably in 1948. I had first moved here to Boise, but some of the family goes way back in this area. My stepfather was a Ray,
Okay.
and his grandfather homesteaded in Placerville in 1865. That was right after the gold discovery here. My wife loved it up here, and we just loved the animals and being out in the woods. And I tell people that come up and visit me, we'll be standing outside, and I'll say, "You hear that?" And they'll stop. "No, I don't hear nothing. That's it." Well, at one time, I had a mining claim over there on Twin Sisters Creek back in the 50s. Actually, there's some pretty good color over in there. And I wasn't right at there's a bigger mine over there. But had a spring on the place, and we had a little, actually a diggings and quartz. We did a little quartz mining in there, but
What would you do with the quartz?
break it down and get the coal out. I've been just about every one of the old mines around here, and like you say, there's several little settlements, little town that you can't get to anymore. Some of the roads are closed off by Forest Service, some of them by people who bought the property and fenced it off. Almost everything shut down that wasn't an advantage to the war effort. Gold mining all stopped, a lot of logging stopped. Things just kind of shut down in a lot of these little backcountry towns. Well, you wouldn't actually call it a ghost town. The store was still open. The other store, it was still open at that time. I used to give talks to the grade schools around, several different ones of Idaho history. And the logging was a major industry in this area. They brought railroads up this way, and they teamed up with the Ararock Dam, Anderson Dam, no, Ararock Dam, to take concrete, all concrete up there. They run the train track from Boise up there. Well, they teamed up with them, and then they brought a main line up to Centerville, up Morris Creek and Grimes Creek. And then there was small narrow gauge, they called shays, the little front wheel drive that they could turn real sharp corners, climb steep hills. And they brought the logs down to Centerville and then transferred them to the large cars to take down to Barber, to the big mill down there. Somewhere I have a book on railroads up here. It's a book that Bumhoffs have a lot of information in, because they had Dredge and the railroad was running up here when they were here, and they used the railroad to bring parts of their dredges up and different things down.
For folks that don't know what a dredge is, could you describe that?
Well, it's a big floating pontoon that they set mining equipment on. The dredge is big buckets, like a backhoe or a steam shovel would have, but they're on a chain, and they drop it down, and they could go about 32 feet with their chains, and they'd scoop up the gravel and dirt and stuff from in the creeks and bring it up and dump it onto a conveyor belt. It would run through the different processes of sorting the sand out, filtering it through trommels and screens, and then running it through more of their finer mining equipment. All of this is on this big pontoon that's floating in a pond in the creek. See, when they first came in here, it was all shovels and pans in the creek. But they depended on water. And so in the wintertime, everything froze up, and then there wasn't a lot of water until everything started thawing out in the spring. Well, the miners knew that the gold had to come from upstream to get in the creek where they're dredging. So they went looking for ledges or areas that they could dig tunnels in and get into the vein where the gold was. And that's why they started with the dredging, hand dredging. Then they moved into the hills around here to do the hard rock mining. But then eventually, see, they could only go down so deep with just the picks and shovels and that kind of work. The dredges, they could go down to 30 feet. Nowadays, they have a modern dredge called a suction dredge, and they suck all that fine stuff that's down in the cracks of the bedrock. And so there's the mining that they usually do today is more or less that kind of going down deeper, and some reprocessing a lot of the ore that they, like I've talked to a lot of miners that were letting flakes go over their riffles. They said, we're just getting the big nuggets, and somebody else can come along and get all those flakes. They all make a brick of gold eventually. And every once in a while, somebody runs onto a pretty good spot. Now, my son-in-law has a 20-acre mining claim. It's up towards Quartzburg, not quite to Quartzburg, on the left-hand side there. And you can still get colors in a pan up there in a lot of that area. There's some of it that hasn't even been worked. And but we had set up some riffles, and but we have people that come and steal those things.
Well,
We got ours stolen twice.
that's an interesting form of gold mining. That is the least invasive, environmentally friendly sort of gold mining I can think of.
Yeah,
Putting riffles just right in the creek and then not disturbing anything.
yeah.
Letting that gold collect.
It just the natural runoff of the material from the hill goes across there, and it collects the gold that's in it. The miners, when you're panning, you get a lot of white sand, black sand, and even some fool's gold in there, the mica and the different, but gold is a yellow color. And so the miners just started calling it, I got a few colors. That means either nuggets or flakes in a pan. But there was a lady, had a bunch of little kids driving up and down the road. And I'd finally ask her, what are you doing? She said, we're sweeping out the culverts. Where the culverts go under the road, she'd send these little kids in there with a brush to brush out the colors. She showed me bunches of gold.
Because the culverts are corrugated and it's
Corrugated, it's like a riffle.
like a riffle.
And so all through that area down there, there's still gold coming out of the hills in order for her to get any out of the riffles going under the road. I get a lot of people that come up, where can I go to pan a little gold? I can't tell them where to go, really, except in my driveway. I went to dig out one of my corner stakes. It's right out on the edge of the road. And, but I dug a hole and drove the pin down. But I'm digging that out, and man, here's flakes of gold. Comes out of my driveway, settled in that hole. I'm not kidding, in a handful, I'd have 8 or 10 flakes of gold
Right out of the driveway.
right out of my driveway.